The Sunday afternoon at George and Amanda's house had felt normal until it didn't.
You need to understand something, Ronald. You are not welcome here anymore.
12 years of silent help, and this is how it ends.
In my own home, with my own children, I will not be judged by you.
George stared at the floor. He didn't say a word. His silence was louder than any defense. Ronald turned and walked out the front door, his jaw set in a line of controlled heartbreak. He drove home in silence, the word unwelcome echoing in his ears. When Ronald pulled into his own driveway, the porch light was already on. He sat at the kitchen table and allowed himself one question. How did it come to this? In the silence of his kitchen, the weight of the afternoon pressed down on him. Ronald didn't move from the kitchen chair for a long time. The silence was a second wound. His mind drifted back to a spring afternoon in 2013, the day George and Amanda closed on the house. Don't worry about the payments. I'll handle the mortgage until you are on your feet. He never asked for a single dollar back. Month after month, the payments left his account, $2,800 a month for 12 years. They never mentioned it. The receipts sat in a simple manila folder, unread since they were filed. I kept my promise, and today they told me I am not welcome. Outside, the porch light burned steady, but inside, a quiet fury started to build. He picked up the phone, then set it down. Not yet. There was something he needed to confirm first. He opened the folder and looked at the original deed, his name printed alone at the bottom. The deed was only half the story. The mortgage was in his name, too. He had signed every paper. George and Amanda had never refinanced. They were residents, not owners. They had no claim. This house is mine. I never gave it away. He checked the bank records. Every payment, 12 years of them, had come from his account alone. I hid this truth even from myself. I let them believe it was their home. He closed the folder and sat back. A cold, unfamiliar clarity settled over him. Monday morning, I'll call the bank. I need to confirm every detail before I act. He left the folder on the counter and went to bed, but sleep didn't come. The morning light found him already dressed, the bank's number in his hand. One question. That's all it will take to change everything. He dialed the bank's number, the sequence of digits as familiar as his own birthday. I need to verify the ownership and mortgage details on property 22 Willow Drive, Ive. Can you confirm that the mortgage is solely in my name and that George and Amanda are only residents? The clerk read back the information. Each fact felt like a stone dropping into still water. They held no ownership. They were guests in a house I provided. Thank you. That's everything I needed to verify. He set the phone down beside the stack of payment receipts, a quiet tally of his side of the bargain. Now he needed legal advice. He already knew who to call. He stood up from the kitchen table, the morning light catching the silver in his hair. The call had given him a cold, clear power. What he did with it would define his next move. Ronald dialed Patricia's office number, then waited through 2 sharp rings. Patricia, it's Ronald. I need your legal advice on a property matter. I've been paying the mortgage on George and Amanda's house for 12 years. The deed is in my name alone. Yesterday, Amanda told me I am not welcome there.
Then you hold full ownership. They are tenants at will. You can sell, evict, or transfer the property.
I don't want to evict them. I want to transfer ownership to a trust for my granddaughter. Olivia, is that possible?
Certainly. A revocable trust can name Olivia as beneficiary, keeping the property out of your son's estate. We should meet to draft the documents.
Can we meet this afternoon?
1 o'clock. Bring the deed and mortgage papers.
Ronald hung up the phone. The first brick of his plan had just been laid. This was never about revenge. It was about protecting Olivia. He arrived at Patricia's office at 1 sharp, the folder of documents under his arm.
I've prepared a revocable living trust. Olivia will be the sole beneficiary. You retain the right to sell or change terms during your lifetime.
And what happens if I die before she comes of age?
The trust becomes irrevocable. A successor trustee you designate will manage it until Olivia turns 25.
She slid the document across the desk. Ronald read the line where his granddaughter's name was printed. That's all I need to see. In neat legal type, the trust named Olivia Ruth Harrison, born 2015, as sole beneficiary.
The deed is now recorded in the trust's name. George and Amanda have no legal standing to contest this.
They have no idea the ground has shifted beneath them. He left the office with a copy of the trust. The weight of his secret settled firmly in his chest. Ronald returned home that evening and walked directly to his small study. He turned on the desk lamp and opened his laptop. He began a letter to George and Amanda, the words measured and final. The subject line read, "Regarding the house, effective the end of this month, I will cease all mortgage payments on the property at 22 Willow Drive, Ive. You may arrange to refinance the house in your own names or vacate the premises." With the letter saved, he attached a copy of the newly executed trust deed. His finger hovered over the send button, the cursor blinking. One click would detonate the reality they had ignored. He clicked send. The screen showed the confirmation, and a quiet finality settled over the room. Ronald closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair, the silence of the house settling around him. They will have to face the truth now. The house was never theirs, and now they must live with that. He did not wait for a reply. The waiting was someone else's burden tonight. The next morning, George arrived at his office and checked his phone between meetings.
An email from his father. The subject line made his stomach drop.
He opened it and read the cold words. The house was never theirs. The payments would stop. George stepped outside into the parking lot and dialed his father's number, his hands unsteady.
"Dad, what is this? You can't just stop everything after 12 years.
I sent you the details. The house has always been in my name. I am simply no longer funding it.
We'll lose our home. Please, let's talk about this."
You have until the end of the month to refinance. The trust already owns the deed. George heard the finality in his father's voice, a door closing that he hadn't known existed.
He has to call Amanda. But how do you tell your wife the home she threw his father out of was never really theirs?
George came home that evening and found Amanda in the living room. He handed her his phone without a word.
"You need to read this. The house was never ours. Dad is stopping the payments."
He can't do this. That house is our home. After 12 years, he thinks he can just.
She grabbed her own phone and dialed Ronald's number, her knuckles white.
How dare you pull this? After everything, you are throwing us out of our own home.
I am not throwing you out, Amanda. I am simply no longer paying for a house that I own.
You are a bitter, cruel old man. We were family.
You told me I wasn't welcome in your home. Now you are not welcome to my money. He hung up before she could reply. The line went dead.
She stood in the hallway, the silent phone trembling in her hand, his words sinking in like cold water.
The next morning, George and Amanda drove to a real estate lawyer downtown, the car ride silent. The consultation was brief. The attorney confirmed everything. They were month-to-month tenants, not owners.
So it's true? We have no rights at all? We can't fight this?
None. The deed was never in our names. Dad had the right to do this.
After all the renovations, the life we built, it was never really ours.
Our only option is to refinance. We apply for a mortgage in our own names.
And if we don't, we're just supposed to leave?
That evening, George opened his laptop and began the mortgage application. The numbers were brutal. The interest rate offered was nearly double what his father had been paying.
This is the price of our ignorance, and the price of telling him he wasn't welcome.
The next few days blurred into a desperate scramble for financial documents.
We need tax returns, pay stubs, bank statements, every piece of our financial life.
They will see every late payment, every credit ding. Nothing to hide behind anymore.
The pre-approval came back with a rate that made the old payment look like a distant gift.
How can it be nearly double? We'll be paying this until we're 70.
We don't have a choice. This is the only way to keep the house.
They clicked submit together, the application hanging in the digital ether.
The waiting was a new kind of silence. filled with numbers she couldn't escape.
George stayed up late, running the calculations again, as if the figures might change.
If this falls through, we lose everything, and it's entirely our own doing.
While George and Amanda waited in tense silence for the bank's decision, Ronald picked Olivia up after school and took her to the neighborhood park.
How was school today, Olivia? Anything fun?
We learned about butterflies. Grandpa, do you still like coming to our house? Mommy said you were mad.
I am never mad at you, sweetheart. I love seeing you.
He knelt down and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket.
This was my mother's locket. Now it's yours. Always remember you have a home.
It's so pretty. Can I wear it now?
Inside was a faded picture of the two of them at a picnic when she was 4.
She will never know the silent battle being waged for her future, and he preferred it that way.
They stayed until sunset. The weight lifted, the world just a girl's laughter on a swing. The bank's email arrived on a Thursday morning, the approval carrying a rate that made the old payment look like a distant dream.
Amanda, it's here. The bank approved us.
And the rate? She asked, already bracing for the answer.
He turned the laptop toward her. The projected monthly payment glowed in unforgiving red.
This number will own us for 30 years.
2 days later, they sat in a sterile title office, a thick stack of papers between them.
We're really doing this.
Amanda gripped her pen so hard her knuckles went white as she signed.
This is the cost of one sentence, a lifetime of payments.
They left with a copy of the new mortgage, the house secured, and a silence heavier than any argument between them. That evening, the silence broke in the kitchen, sharp and unexpected.
This is your fault. You just stood there while your father humiliated me.
I stood there because you were the one who threw him out. What was I supposed to do?
You could have defended our family. Instead, you let him walk out.
Defended what? The house he paid for? The life he funded?
So now you are taking his side?
I am not taking any side. I am just saying this didn't have to happen.
Upstairs, Olivia sat on the top step, her chin resting on her knees, listening to the raised voices.
Everything I did was for this family.
And look where it got us. A house that feels like a cage and a debt that will follow us forever.
A week later, a letter from the bank landed on Ronald's kitchen counter, a brief notice confirming the mortgage had been discharged.
The final payment had cleared. 12 years had been reduced to a single sheet of paper.
He carried a cup of tea to the front porch and lowered himself into the wooden chair that had seen better decades.
He had done what he promised, and then some. The silence that followed wasn't loneliness, it was relief.
The sunset spread across the neighborhood, and he watched it without the weight he'd carried for so long.
Olivia would have a home. That was the only thing that ever mattered.
Inside, the manila folder sat closed on the kitchen table, its contents now part of a future that wouldn't be his to see.
The anger had burned away days ago. What remained was the quiet knowledge that he had been the guardian, even when they couldn't see it.
He finished his tea as the last light faded, the porch settling into the familiar hush of evening.
One day Olivia will understand. Until then, he would simply rest, knowing the house was safe.
Weeks after the refinancing, George's name lit up Ronald's phone one evening. Ronald watched the call until it went to voicemail. He didn't pick up.
He wasn't angry anymore. He just had nothing left to say.
That night he sat at his desk with a fountain pen and a sheet of cream stationery. He began a letter in his steady cursive, addressed to Olivia. Dear Olivia, if you are reading this, I am gone. The house was always meant for you. I hope you understand, in time. He sealed the letter and wrote her full name on the envelope.
She would read it when the time was right. His silence would protect her.
George's calls became less frequent after that evening, and then they stopped entirely. The distance was permanent, but so was Olivia's future. That was enough. By 2025, Olivia was a sharp-eyed 13-year-old who noticed the gaps in the stories she was told. While looking for a missing textbook, she found a box of old tax documents in her parents' closet.
Why is Grandpa's name on a paper with the words revocable trust and the address of our house?
She carried the paper downstairs, where her father sat alone in the dim living room.
Dad, I found this. It says Grandpa's name and revocable trust. Did he used to own our house?
That's old stuff, honey. It doesn't matter anymore. Just some paperwork from years ago.
But it stated the year I was born, and it says our address. Please, I want to understand.
That's enough, Olivia. Some things are best left in the past.
Olivia looked at her father, but his silence was the same as it had been a decade ago.
They were hiding something, and she was going to find out what it was.
In 2040, Ronald died peacefully in his sleep, aged 85, alone in the house he had kept so quiet. His will left clear instructions. All documents relating to the trust were to be delivered to Patricia. When the file arrived at her office, she opened it and read the cover note in Ronald's familiar handwriting.
He'd planned every detail, even his own departure.
She placed the trust papers and the sealed letter into her office safe, checking the date. Olivia had just turned 19 then, years away from understanding the weight of what awaited her.
He had waited 12 years to act. I could wait a few more.
The safe remained locked, the papers untouched, as Olivia went through college and into her 20s. Only the notary stamp on the trust knew how long it had been since Ronald signed it.
Soon, Olivia would hold the keys to more than a house.
In the spring of 2055, Patricia placed a call to Olivia Harrison. She arrived at the law office with the same cautious curiosity she'd carried since childhood.
Your grandfather left this for you. It's time you read it.
Inside were 2 documents, the trust deed and a handwritten letter, the ink still dark after years. You may not remember, but when you were 4, I told you you'd always have a home. That was a promise.
He'd set this in motion before she could even read. All those years, he was building her future.
The house belongs to you now, Olivia. George and Amanda are tenants. You hold the deed.
She traced her name on the notary's seal, the date, 2 weeks after the Sunday she'd barely remembered.
He never stopped loving us, even when we exiled him.
In that office, the girl who'd been told to forget finally understood. She drove to Willow Drive that same afternoon, the keys of the house she now owned resting in her purse. The front door opened before she could knock. Her father stood there, older, thinner, his eyes questioning.
Dad, I know about the house, about Grandpa.
He stepped back, allowing her inside. Amanda rose from the sofa, her face unreadable.
I am not here to make anyone leave. I just needed you to know that I know.
He couldn't meet her eyes. The silence he had practiced his whole life returned.
It was a long time ago.
It was my whole life, and he loved me anyway.
The living room held the 3 of them in a silence heavier than any argument. No one moved, and in that quiet the truth sat between them, finally acknowledged, if not forgiven. She found his grave beneath a tall maple, the stone simple and clean. She knelt and placed the bouquet of white roses she had carried since morning. Then she unfolded the deed, the paper creased and soft with age, and laid it across the grass.
I understand now, Grandpa. Thank you for everything.
She reached into her pocket and placed the locket beside the deed. Then she stood, pressing the locket's memory to her heart. She looked at the stone for a long moment, the years falling away. The folded deed rested beneath his name, a final receipt of a fulfilled promise. She turned and walked toward the path, the breeze lifting her hair. And in the quiet of the cemetery, the longest mortgage finally found its rest. Years passed, and the house on Willow Drive filled with new laughter. The mortgage had long been paid, but a different debt of love was honored every day. A small boy tugged at her sleeve and pointed to the silver locket around her neck.
That's my Grandpa. He gave me this so I'd always remember I had a home. He never asked for anything, but he gave us everything.
She kissed the top of his head, then straightened the frame a little straighter. The picture was of a man in an olive shirt holding a 4-year-old girl. In that house, his silence had become their family story, told every time someone asked about the locket, a father's invisible love, paid in months and years, finally visible in the eyes of his granddaughter, and the house at 22 Willow Drive was finally, truly, a home